Hey you guys, I'm JC from One Shot Adventures, and today I'm going to give you an overview of Spectral Tides, the Goblin-Thing, a 1980s teenage horror adventure inspired by those old movies like The Goonies, Stand By Me, and even Stranger Things. In this adventure, a gang of misfit teenagers discovers that their best friend has gone missing on a small island in the Pacific Northwest. And soon, they're on a hunt to find him. But they'll discover that danger is on the doorstep of their small beloved town because there's an escaped killer, haunted old magic, and a horde of unnatural creatures heading their way. The Goblin-Thing is a free adventure that I wrote that you can download off of oneshotadventures.com, and it's available for Call of Cthulhu, GURPS, and old school role-playing, aka Dark Places and Demogorgons, but it's pretty easy to port to your favorite horror system. Like all my adventures, it includes handouts, maps, and a ton of VTT assets. If you're ready to head back to 1985, then go get your bike and meet me out front, because not only am I going to give you a full overview of the Goblin-Thing, I'm going to give you GM some tips and tricks on how to run this one like a pro. But be warned, there are some serious spoilers ahead, so if you want to play in this adventure, well, back away now and send your favorite GM to check this video out instead. Here we go. The Goblin-Thing is a 14-page adventure, and I think most groups will be able to finish it in just one session. It comes with pre-generated characters for all three of those game systems I mentioned, lots of handouts and maps, so hopefully it's pretty easy for you GMs to get this adventure ready without a lot of prep. The adventure is a combination of horror and action, but the horror isn't really disturbing or gory. It's very much based on the tropes of those old 80s films. And like those old movies, the entire adventure is set in a small town, in this case, Oak Harbor, Washington. A sleepy northwestern town, Oak Harbor is a beautiful getaway with a friendly community and a gorgeous view of the Sound. Oak Harbor also has its local legends, and one of them is that of the Goblin-Thing, a bug-eyed, worm-faced creature that is rumored to swim from island to island, feeding on old seals. And fishermen claim to have occasionally seen this creature loping through the woods on these islands, and some say they've seen him collecting skulls that are decidedly unseal-like. The Goblin-Thing is also said to collect valuable artifacts from the bottom of the Sound, including a crate of rare 1896 Liberty Head nickels that are worth a lot of money that are said to have been lost from boats in the cursed Mosquito Fleet, an armada of jerry-rigged steamships that frequently ran into disasters at the turn of the century while transporting cargo. If someone were to ever find the Goblin-Thing's island lair, described as a cave or a hovel or even a hollow tree, they would surely come back to the mainland rich. The adventure opens up the morning after an unusual squall hit the town. All of the PC's rambunctious, misfit teenagers have camped out in the attic of one of their friends' houses. And just as they're waking up, listening to Billy Ocean and playing some Pitfall 2, their attic's short-range radio comes to life. It's their best friend, Jake Sampson, who's excitedly radioing them. Jake's sort of a local teenage celebrity because he's a treasure hunter and he's found actual real treasure before, including the ship's wheel from the Dicks, one of the vessels in the Mosquito Fleet lost 100 years ago. Let's hear what Jake has to say.
Guys, can you hear me? I found it! The Goblin-Thing's lair, it's totally real! And there's like $1 million worth of Liberty Head nickels here, just like we thought! There's no way I can haul this stuff back by myself, so bring a dinghy to Sitka Island, and we can bring it all back. Hang on, I just heard something. Hello? Oh, it's you again. Wait, what is that behind you? Why is it walking like that? Wait, no! Oh God! Ah! Get back! Ah!
That's right. Jake claims to have found the Goblin-Thing's treasure before something terrible sounds like it happened to him. And now the PCs have to rescue him from this Sitka island that he says he's at. Now, to really kick off the action, the adventure uses banter cards, one of my favorite ways to kick off a one-shot adventure. All of the players should get these little cards with a few bullet points on each of them, and then they take turns reading or improvising some of the phrases off their cards. Some of those phrases will be local backstory for the adventure, others will really just help the players get into character, and the players go around the table, around and around, until all the information has been told. And if it goes right, this feels like a scene from a movie. Now, all of the players will be filled in on the backstory of the adventure and know who each other is, and the GM doesn't have to do anything. And if you really want to capture the feel of those 1980s movies, tell your players to talk too fast and constantly interrupt and overlap on each other's lines. Of course, the police are nowhere to be found, and the PC's parents are all either busy or uninterested, so it's up to the teenage heroes to set off and rescue their best friend. Fortunately, they know where Sitka Island is. It's just a short boat ride from the mainland. Now, as soon as the PCs race around town, gathering their bikes and supplies, etc., they're going to see wanted posters nailed up outside a few locations in town. It seems that the murderer, Conroy Biggins, has escaped prison and is thought to be in the area. Everyone warns the PCs to stay away if they see Conroy Biggins because not only is he dangerous, it's reported that he's escaped jail to get revenge on his old man Zacharias Biggins, who lives in the area and years ago turned his own son into the police, which is the reason Conroy went to jail. Now, at the opening of the adventure, there's a few places the players can go visit, like the library, an antique store, and Windjammers, a local fish and chips restaurant near the docks. There's also some opportunities for players to meet some locals, like a cranky teacher of theirs, the forgetful but mildly helpful librarian, or the town's antiquarian who always seems to be eager to assist the PCs. These NPCs are really there to add flavor, but they can be useful allies or even victims later on in the adventure. Observant PCs might even see that fugitive Conroy Biggins lurking around town, but he'll leave them alone. He has no interest in these teenagers since he's got other business to attend to. And like I said, even if the PCs see him and want to stop him, they're probably not going to be able to do much since nobody wants to get involved with Conroy Biggins and the police aren't in town today. To get to Sitka Island, the PCs have to procure a boat. Some of the pre-generated characters own one, or they'll have to beg like a local fisherman or somebody else, a friend, to take them out on the water. And there's even an encounter on the water with a local rich jock bully, Brad Hogan, and his girlfriend Marnie, who will tease the dorky PCs and threaten them. He's a really fun recurring NPC that the GM can use for various purposes. Like I said, I really tried to give the Game Master here enough tools with NPCs and locations to keep the players moving and to give them some flexibility on what they do next. So soon the PCs will land on Sitka Island and they'll find Jake's abandoned rowboat. And underneath it is the corpse of some half-naked, short, rotting humanoid who has like no joints in his legs. It's a stiff leg. And this should signal to the PCs that something weird and amiss is on this island. The PCs now get to explore this small island, and this part is also fairly open-ended, allowing the PCs to kind of go wherever they want. There's a couple interesting encounters on the island, and probably one of the most important is an encounter with the town's old hermit mariner, Mordecai Anchorage. He'd be played by Wilford Brimley if this was a movie in the 80s. And he will warn the PCs that they need to get off this island because it's infested by these zombie-like creatures, the stifflegs, drowned men who have somehow come back to life, and this is something he blames Zacharias Biggins on. Mordecai is also carrying a strange book with him that the PCs will get a glimpse of. It's called Witchcraft of the Tides, 1903 edition. Oh yeah, Witchcraft of the Tides, 1903 edition. Now that's the one you want. That's the edition before Hasbro got their hands on it. You know what I'm talking about. The players can also find a creepy tanning cabin, which is owned by Zacharias Biggins, the fugitive's father, and this is where the PCs can start to get some clues on what's going on. You see, Zacharias knew that his awful, evil, murdering son Conroy was coming for him. And one day, Zacharias discovered recently washed ashore Sitka Island was the wreck of the Dix, one of the ships from the Mosquito fleet that sunk years ago. That book, Witchcraft of the Tides, was found on the ship, and he flipped through it and he discovered that it had some rituals in it, including a ritual that would seemingly protect the caster from anyone with evil intent. So Zacharias, figuring he had nothing to lose, performed the ritual, not fully understanding the implications there. The spell, which created the squall the night before, also summoned the dead from the wreck of the Dix, and they're now roaming the island. These are the Stifflegs. They hate Conroy and will kill him on sight because they want to protect Zacharias, but there's also a problem that they basically kill anybody else in their path. They just don't pick the targets, these Stifflegs. They're just mindless dead. So in the cabin, the PCs will find a photo of the Dix, clearly on Sitka Island, as well as the ripped page from that old book, which details the ritual that Zacharias used to summon the Stifflegs. It also describes that there's instructions to cancel the spell, but they're later on in the book, which of course is held by Mordecai Anchorage, that grumpy old mariner. After visiting a few locations on the island, the PCs will soon hear an argument nearby, and there they'll find the murderous fugitive Conroy Biggins angrily confronting his father with a gun. He shoots his father, Zacharias, and escapes, and as he lay dying, Zacharias admits kind of what's going on to the PCs, and he also reveals that he was the one that kidnapped Jake Sampson when he caught that kid meddling in his tanning cabin, and he dragged him to the wreck of the Dix and tied him up there. And the Dix, don't forget, is where Zacharias originally found that spell book. So the PCs now have to find the wreck of the Dix somewhere on the island and rescue their friend Jake. But they're going to have to fend off some of those nasty zombie-like Stifflegs. This is a fun scene with the PCs crawling into the dark wreck of the ship, finding their friend, only to be jumped by several of these creatures. And watching like teenage PCs trying to fight off zombies is always fun, since they likely won't have much in the way of real weapons. GMs should really be sure to let the PCs get creative here. I've had one group that worked like so well together. Like one of them would shine a flashlight into the eyes of the Stifflegs and blind them as like the strongest kid in the group, like beat them with a boat chain. You really don't want a bloodbath of all your players here. So reward creativity as they try to figure out how to handle these zombies. At this point, even though they've rescued their friends, the PCs have a real problem. Conroy's escaped back to the mainland, and now the Stifflegs are everywhere, and they're going to chase Conroy down and try to kill him, which means that the entire town of Oak Harbor is now going to be under a full-on zombie siege in just a couple of hours. Fortunately, the PCs will likely be able to figure out how to reverse the ritual that created the Stifflegs. They just have to find Mordecai again and convince him to let them see the rest of the book. And like all grumpy old men in the movies, Mordecai will eventually reveal that he has a soft spot for these kids and he'll agree to help. And reversing the ritual is seemingly easy. The PCs just have to utterly destroy the grave where the undead Stifflegs came from, which is the wreck of the Dix. So the players will likely think to pull matches from their pocket and like burn the whole thing down. But remember how I said that years ago, Jake Sampson was a local celebrity because he found the ship's wheel from the Dix? Well, that has to be destroyed too, and it's currently mounted very nicely in the Oak Harbor Town Library. So now you have the finale of the adventure. The PCs have to race back to Oak Harbor while dealing with a full-on invasion of dozens of Stifflegs, and Conroy Biggins the fugitive is lurking around, scared and eager to make his getaway. Probably blames the PCs in some way on what's going on. And all of those NPCs from the beginning of the adventure that the PCs met, like Brad Hogan the bully, or the librarian, or the antiquarian, can all show up here to either help, or act as victims, or just get in the way. The GM really has a lot of flexibility in this end part, and the adventure offers some scenes for the GM to insert where it makes sense, like the PCs, as they pass by a house, might see that librarian trapped in her kitchen, like trying to fight off some stiff legs with a blender. And if they save her, they can like be rewarded because she pulls an antique shotgun out of her cupboard and like hands it to the players. Or the PCs might see that bully Brad Hogan like standing on top of his car with a baseball bat trying to save his girlfriend Marnie, and now the players have to make that hard choice about whether to save the bully or leave him to his own fate.
Oh, hey dudes! I know I bully you all the time, but could you please help me out with these zombies?
They almost always save him. Eventually, the PCs have to fight their way to the library, yank the ship's wheel off the wall, and destroy it. And this, as the ritual describes, summons the Sovereign, a masked spirit of the dead. He could be an eldritch figure from like mythology, or a Swinomish medicine man, or whatever else the GM really imagines. It's up to you. But the point here is he is the master of the dead, and with the ritual complete, he is willing to parley with the PCs. He appears in a cloud of darkness and shadow and asks the PCs what they intend with regards to the stiff legs. And with some role playing at this point, the PCs can convince the Sovereign to send the stiff legs away, and in doing so, they'll realize that the spirit's mask is remarkably similar to how the Goblin-Thing has been described in the past, giving them a hint of the lore that kickstarted the whole adventure. Was this the Goblin-Thing, or is the real Goblin-Thing still out there? Nobody will know. So with some bold action, cleverness, and a little bit of luck, the PCs can save their hometown from the stiff legs and return it back to the quiet town that they love. And if they're especially good, they might even manage to capture Conroy Biggins in the process, sending him back to jail and making them true heroes. And that's Spectral Tides, the Goblin-Thing, an adventure where I really tried capturing the flavor and feel of those old 1980s movies, which so deftly combined excitement, horror, and mystery together with a hairball of high-energy teenagers. Of all the adventures I've written, this is definitely one of the most fun ones to GM, especially with new role players. It's a setting that everybody kind of intuitively knows. It doesn't require a lot of game mechanics to know, regardless of what system you end up playing in, and it usually gives all your players a chance to shine at some point. If this adventure sounds fun, you can download it for free at oneshotadventures.com, along with a bunch of VTT assets like tokens, maps, pre-generated characters, those banter cards, and even that audio introduction from Jake Sampson. If you end up running or playing in this adventure, let me know how it went in the comments below. I'd love to learn more. Otherwise, I hope this video inspires you to make up your own 1980s adventure. And if you want to see more adventure overviews and reviews, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I could easily see this town and its inhabitants having lots of follow-up adventures, so if that sounds interesting too, let me know. There's a giant octopus scene that I had in mind for this adventure, but I ended up cutting it. I wonder if that was a good idea. Until next time, I'm JC, and just remember, if Michael Jackson comes over to your house to use the bathroom, don't keep that kind of thing to yourself.